Hello. My name is Kristen, and I am obsessed with all things play-based and child-led learning. Truly obsessed. I am here to help you navigate the messy and the magical on your journey to a play-based program. It is truly magical on the other side, and I want you to feel each day what I feel when I walk into my classroom. I am the homeschool mama to 4. I'm the founder of a play and nature-based preschool and forest school, and I am here to cheer you on. I'm ready. Are you ready? Let's get going. Good morning, Nikki.
Hi, Kristen. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you this afternoon?
I'm very good, thanks. It's a beautiful day here. I was at the beach this morning.
Oh, I think like the beach anywhere has my heart. So someday I will live near the ocean, but right now I just live by lakes. So we have a lot of lakes in our state that we live in.
So at the moment, are they all frozen?
Yep, they're all frozen right now. Mm-hmm.
So you can go skating.
Yeah, we do a lot of ice skating and we do, ice fishing. Like people put houses out on the lake, like little tiny houses. Have you ever heard of ice fishing?
No, but that sounds terrifying because doesn't the ice crack? Like I've seen too many horror movies where people fall like into the ice and all.
Yeah, I mean, it does happen. There's certain parts of the lake where you have like, and being a Minnesotan, like you kind of know these things because you grow up around it. So you know where you can drive most of the time and where you can't drive most of the time. I refuse to go on the lake in a car, but you have to like make sure all your windows are rolled down because like if you go in, you need to be able to get out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It sounds similar to growing up in South Africa. We're like that about crime.
Yes.
You just know where you can and can't go and keep your windows locked and, don't drive down that street, and it's quite hectic.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So for podcast listeners, this is Nikki. She reached out on Instagram and had some questions about play-based learning and starting a program in South Africa. And so she reached out, had questions, and I said, you know what? Like, there's probably so many people that have these same questions. And so, like, would you be willing to do a Zoom call with me and I'll record it so that other people can learn from it too? And she was totally on board. So that is what we're doing today. We have not planned anything. So we're just going to like shoot this organically so that everybody can learn from this conversation. So I'm all yours for an hour, and you just fire away and I'll answer what I can.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for this opportunity. Honestly, I feel so blessed and lucky. Like when you replied to me on Instagram, I was like, she replied. I'm sure you're so busy. You probably have like a million people inboxing you, but thank you for making time on your Saturday morning.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me, if you have more to say, you can add, but I want you to start out by telling people about you and like what your plan is and like what you're doing in South Africa and your vision for what you want to create there.
Yeah. Okay. So I am, for the last 4 years, I've been working at an advertising agency here in Port Elizabeth in South Africa. And prior to that, I was living overseas in South Korea teaching. So I studied at university. I did an undergrad in psychology, and then I did a postgrad in teaching. And then I went over to Korea, and the aim at first was just to teach for 1 year, teaching English as a foreign language. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up staying on to a total of 4 years. I'm working at an international school in a boarding house and teaching English in the high school, incidentally. And then I came back to South Africa because I was like, well, I guess 4 years is a long time. Let me go back home and settle a little bit. And then I sort of just like accidentally got into this corporate line of work for a bit. So I took a bit of a break from teaching, but especially this last year, I mean, I feel like COVID was like a reset for a lot of people. And a lot of things became super clear to me that like this wasn't really my my industry, and I didn't feel like I was operating in my space of like my greatest talents or even what I gravitate towards. And so I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and a lot of just, I felt like I was putting too much of my mental health was being put into something that wasn't really my forever thing. So then I just was like, you know what, I need to just take this bold step and I need to just resign. And my true dream is to start a school for young children, so pre-grade. I mean, in South Africa we talk about it as grade R, which is the year just before school. I don't know if that's like the equivalent of your kindergarten.
That would be our equivalent of preschool. So that would be 3, 4, and 5-year-olds.
Okay, so in South Africa, the official schooling system starts in grade R, which is when the year that you turn 6.
Okay, so that would be like kindergarten if that's official school.
Yeah, so then anything before that is obviously preschool or play school or whatever else. So and it doesn't really fall under the education department, it falls under the social services department. Same. So that's what that's the age and stage that I'm really wanting to focus on. But in South Africa, we've got a lot of traditional play schools or preschools. And I've been just doing a lot of research recently into the sort of non-traditional world and the world of play-based learning, especially Reggio Emilia inspired. And it's just like really, really like moving me. And I'm just like, I need to create a space like this because I haven't been exposed to one. I know that there probably are centers or at least schools around that probably do it that I just don't know of here in South Africa. But I think a lot of what I'm used to is the very traditional way and like plastic fantastic, you know, and I don't want to do that. I want to have something that's just like nature-based, play-based, outdoors as much as possible, natural materials, etc. But so I think what I discussed with you on Instagram briefly was I'm just feeling, because I've been out of the classroom for a long time, so I'm sort of feeling a little bit like inexperienced, and also just like not knowing where to start in terms of like the business model, you know. It kind of feels a little bit deep endish. So that's why I was interested in hearing from you, your journey, and you know, like how and where and when did you sort of launch into this thing you're doing now? Did you start like really small with like a couple of children, or did you first work on developing this program that you could then roll out with a much bigger class?
Okay, I'll just start talking. So I however many years ago, I don't even know, I should actually like put this in a timeline because I have to tell people a lot, like when my play journey started and all that stuff. So I was working in a traditional preschool classroom, and I went to school, like college, for teaching, and I have like an early childhood certification on my teaching degree. However, I mean, college can be so wonderful for so many people. However, everything that I've learned for what I'm doing right now, I learned completely on my own. It was completely self-directed, and it was completely because I was interested and like wondered about things just like you. Like you start this path of just digging and wanting to learn more. And that's play. Like you are learning through play right now because you're choosing it, you're interested in it. And that is what play-based learning does for young children too.
That's so great.
This feeling of flow that you may feel yourself in when you start reading about Reggio Emilia influence programs or reading about play-based learning, that's a flow state. And that's the state that young children enter into when they are allowed the time, the space, and the freedom to make their own choices about how they spend their time in the environment. Okay, so back to I teaching in a traditional program, you know, full of like, oh, you can't do that. This is what you need to be doing at this time. Sit crisscross applesauce, walking down the hallway in lines, just very, very teacher directed. And I was stressed out. I was worn out. I was continually spending time trying to figure out behavior management and classroom management in the classroom. And I went to a conference. Lisa Murphy, she is known as the Ooey Gooey lady, and she spoke, and I was like enamored. She spoke about play-based learning and how we all learn through play and what that looks like, and that children aren't getting the chance to do that. And that sent me on a tailspin journey. And later, so that was like in the spring of my second year of teaching preschool in our traditional program. Then the next fall, like September, I went to another conference with a man. His name is Jeff Johnson. And he, like, again, sent me on a tailspin. I ended up quitting my job, giving my notice in like March of that year that I was going to be done. And in the meantime, I was working for a church as their Christian education director. And the pastor came to me, I don't know, it was probably like this, like August of the year before I quit. I really need to put a timeline together.
Even just for interest's sake.
He said, what do you think about starting a preschool here? I was like, I have no idea how to do that. And he's like, well, you're a big girl. Like, you can figure it out. I was like, can I? Like, I don't know. So I sat on that for quite some time. And then I think I had just been fed up after learning so much about play and reading so much about how the brain works, and realizing that the things that I was doing in the classroom were not working for the children at all. And it was more of a show for the parents and the community, because that's what is expected. Like, that is societal view of education, is that you have to sit to learn and that you have to listen to the teacher. And
I think so there's also a lot of anxiety around like school readiness. You know, like so much of what I've been seeing, it's just like, oh, but are you preparing the kids for the next grade? Even this last week, I spent some time volunteering. One of my friends is a teacher in a pre-grade R class. So her children are 4 turning 5. And she so sweetly said, like, I could come hang out with her at school for a few days and just kind of be around little children again, which was amazing. Nice. And there was one of the older grades teacher popped in to have a chat the one morning. And I was talking to her and she was like, oh, well, I'm so happy to hear you're starting a school. Please, whatever you do, just prepare them for when they come up here. I mean, honestly, we get children from these play-based schools and they can't even hold a pair of scissors when they get to us. And I thought to myself, like, I could understand the intention behind what she was saying, but it just resonates with me so much. A lot of what I've been seeing on your feed as well. It's just like, no, I'm not preparing your child for the next grade. Like, that's not what we're doing here. You know, like, anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, we're letting them be the age that they are. We are embracing them for who they are right now in this moment and giving them exactly what they need right now, not 2 years down the road.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, that's a whole entire like soapbox thing for me too. That is a hard thing to break, but I think I'm seeing a shift a little bit with the amount of people who are learning more about play and advocating for it and making small changes in their communities. So, okay, I quit. I started researching. I read the book Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv, and I was like, oh my gosh, my kids need to be outside. So that's kind of where it hit me. It was like, okay, I need to start something that's different than everything else that's in our community. And what does that look like? So in order to be successful, I mean, that's just a simple like business strategy, is finding your niche, and then you stick to that niche and you don't falter, and you set up your mission and your vision and your values around that niche. And ours is nature and play based. So I did a whole bunch of research, just my own Googling. I mean, Google's your best friend. And finding organizations that support nonprofits, startups. Do you have, what's the structure of like business in South Africa? Are you familiar with any of that, or is that something you still need to find out?
I'm sort of familiar. I mean, you obviously can go nonprofit, or you just like sole enterprise or social enterprise, or you know, there's a bunch of different types. So I still need to figure out. I think that I think that I don't want to go the nonprofit route, because I think that opens up a whole different can of worms, and then that's obviously applying for funding each year. And I think I would like to create something that's its own self-sustaining model.
Yep.
Yeah, so but I do still need to do some figuring around what that's going to look like, in terms of like the business model. Like, is it an investment model, or do I have outside investors? And
yes. Okay, so I'm going to point you in the direction of a website here in the United States, and it might be a lot of it probably is really applicable to anywhere in the world. It's called First Children's Finance. It's firstchildrensfinance.com. And it's actually, I think, a Minnesota-based nonprofit organization that it's a nonprofit bank, I believe, but it also provides so much education around starting up a childcare, budgeting. There's so many answers you will find on that website, even if you're not from the United States. That's another person to check into, and he's also from Minnesota, I believe. His name is Tom Copeland, Copeland. He has amazing resources as well for the business side of childcare, starting up a childcare. So those two tools have been super helpful for me in my journey.
That's great to know. Thanks.
Yeah. And then there's a website called Hi Mama. I think it's a Canadian-based company. It's HI, and I think it's just MAMA. Hi Mama. And I know that recently I downloaded a budgeting template from them that was super helpful when I was working on my next year's projected budget. So those could be all fantastic tools for anyone to use to just get a start. We are a nonprofit, and the reason that I went nonprofit is because I had no money of my own. So
you needed to apply for funding and that type of thing.
Exactly. Yes. And so I think one of the biggest things that I can tell people when you are starting something up is generally, if you're starting something up, you have an extreme passion for it. You have a drive to make it happen. And I think what helped me most is talking about it. And I mean, also that has a little bit to do with energy. And I feel like I kind of run at a really high vibration state. And so people are attracted to that. And so that helps when you have energy and positivity around what you're doing. So talking a lot about what you're doing, but also being careful not to be too negative in
what you're not doing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
like
I hear you.
Why you're not doing it. So maybe listing all of the positive reasons of why you're doing what you're doing, but kind of leaving behind the negative vibe of like, I mean, we all fall into that, but that's just a little tidbit that I've learned along my journey that I've, obviously taken a fall from a few times, just from like talking bad about things. So I've learned just to be
that's such good advice though, really, because I think as humans, we all fall into that. It's really natural to want, you're trying to set up the opposites. So you're like, I'm doing this because this doesn't work, but you also don't want to sabotage yourself, or you don't want to, like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think I'm at a point now. So like I use my Instagram platform as a place to say, like, stop doing this because it's not developmentally appropriate, or adults should not be expecting this of children. And here's why. So like, there's a little bit of like, what I try to do is get more of a shock value now, but I can do that because I'm established and whatnot in what I'm doing. And it's two separate things. Anyway. Okay. So we started a nonprofit because I had zero money, and then just worked really hard to get money. Through talking with lots of people and getting people excited about it, I had people step up and like offer to write grants. I had somebody like a lawyer who stepped up to do all of the nonprofit paperwork that needed to be done. He did it pro bono. It was amazing. Somebody who filled out all of the nonprofit paperwork that we had to apply to go with to the IRS. And I just went for it. I remember vividly there's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be people who are like, that's dumb, or like, this is like a dream, like this is not going to work, but you need to trust your intuition. Like it's there for a reason. And if you feel the pull to do this, just keep going. Don't let the people who are like, that's never going to work here, get you down.
Yeah.
I had done like a meeting within the church because the church wanted to know like what I was proposing. The church at that point in time, like when we were first, the idea was first a thing. The church had to decide if they wanted to fund it or if I needed to do it on my own. And so I had been presenting to a bunch of different groups within the church. And one of the men at the meeting, the first meeting said, so do you have a date that you're going to pull the plug on this idea? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, every business needs to have a date where they just say, this isn't working.
Wow.
Let's pull the plug. And I was like, well, I don't have one.
Yeah. Also, I don't want one.
No. And then he said, he was like, what about May 14th? And I was like, you're seriously putting a date? So in my head, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, you don't believe in this. Like you are a naysayer. So I told him, I said, I will give you a date. However, I am also going to take a picture of the very long line when registration opens, and I'm going to send it to you. And I said that. And now he became like one of my biggest supporters because I was like, I believed in it. And I did. I took a picture and I sent it to him. And I said, here you go.
Yeah. Sure.
So yeah, you have to just keep going no matter what. Do something little every single day.
Yeah.
Or big every single day in order to propel this idea forward. You need to like, if it's something that you really want to happen, set aside time just for learning and growing and digging to figure out what you need to do. And there are going to be times where you feel like, oh my gosh, this is the worst idea I've ever had in my life. But if you have that intuition, if you have that gut and you have that drive, just push through it and make yourself do something anyway.
That's so good.
Yeah. So we started out, my goal was to start with 16 kids and 2 teachers. We opened with 32 or 33 students and 4 teachers.
Wow. Sure.
So
business model wise, was that 16 and 2, was that number what you needed in order for the thing to be sustainable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that was based on, well, at that time, we didn't have to pay, the church was not charging us any rent, which was amazing for the first couple of years. So that was a phenomenal thing that the church did for us. And now we pay, I mean, a decent chunk of money every month to be there, but we are much more established now. So, yes. The Hi Mama budgeting template that I told you about, like that is really going to help you. I mean, it's actually super simple. Like I'm not a budget person. I'm not a finance person at all. It overwhelms me so much, but I didn't actually realize how simplistic it can be. Okay. If budgeting is not your thing and accounting is not your thing, I would definitely recommend getting an accountant on your side and helping with those things, because there were things that I messed up on way in the beginning that could have saved so much time and could have given us a lot more money. So what happened was I filed our nonprofit paperwork, and I checked the wrong box on one thing, saying that we were going to be a private foundation instead of a nonprofit organization. I didn't know. And we didn't find out about that mistake until like 5 years in. When we were applying for grants, and the grant people came back and said, well, you can't even get a grant because you're a foundation. I was like, what does that even mean? And so we had to go back and refile all of our paperwork to be an actual, like a charity. So, I know. So anyway,
sorry, I'm asking so many questions about this model. So with your nonprofit status, how does enrollment work? Do the students who come to your school pay school fees? And
Yes,
then
they
do
do.
those
Mhm.
and then do those school fees obviously go into the model of costs for the center and then paying salaries to the teachers and buying resources, etc.
Exactly. We are mostly funded by tuition.
Okay.
We do get grants every once in a while. We do fundraisers in order to make a little bit of extra money for certain things, but otherwise our tuition pays for our whole entire staff salaries, and most of the costs of the preschool. So
Okay.
we make it so like our budget, our tuition coming in, that we wouldn't have to do any fundraisers at all with the amount of tuition coming in. We can pay our staff, we can pay all of our expenses with tuition 100%, and all of the other things that we bring in are bonus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Good to
Yeah.
know.
So that's kind of the state of not, or even for-profit childcare in the United States, is that tuition and fees cover mostly everything because we don't get any state funding whatsoever.
Yeah, I know we won't either.
Yeah. So, budgeting is it's not my thing. So I can budget. Like I never had worked an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet before I started. I had no idea how to like even add cells between like two cells together to get a sum. I didn't know anything, and I figured it out. My budget spreadsheets probably don't look as well as other people's, but like I understand them. And my board of directors, that's the other thing about a nonprofit, is you have to have a board of directors in the United States. They just have learned that like my spreadsheets maybe don't look like a traditional person's spreadsheet.
But I think you're right. I think it is really simple. It needs to be like this plus this equals this, and this is bigger than this, and that's income and that's expenditure. Like that's it.
That's what it comes down to. The number coming in needs to be bigger than the number going out.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, you go.
You keep going. I was just going to keep talking, but give me a question.
So in terms of timelines, like I know this is so subjective and personal, but like from when you started doing all this digging and researching and planning, how long did the process take you from that to actually opening?
Good question. It was about a 2-year process total. That was from the start of me saying, like 6 months after the pastor came to me and said, you should open a preschool, to me going back to him and saying, I have an idea and I'm ready to start. So from that time to the time we opened, I'm going to say it was about 18 months. Because I went to him in about like January of 2013 and we opened in September of 2014.
Okay.
And it's a lot of that has to do with licensing. Yeah. It was licensing and then trying to get grant money to start. Yeah. Were the two biggest things.
The licensing obviously takes long. It's the same in South Africa. I think from what I've heard, licensing can take up to 3 years in South Africa. So I know. So that's really hard. But then I think what you can do is you can start operating earlier and obviously just have proof that you're in the process of getting your registration. And then also it's about the numbers. So I've heard a couple of different sources, but apparently it's like less than 10 children and you don't have to necessarily be registered as an ECD institution. And then and as you grow, then you obviously like wait for your registration to come before you can add more kids and that type of thing. So
interesting. There you go.
Yeah. So
there's definitely workarounds, I think, in many places. Like for instance, we have like a forest school program that we run too. So we head out to the woods a few times a week, but there's many programs that are operating without a building. And like, how hot does it get in South Africa where you live?
It gets probably to about 35 degrees Celsius.
Which I'm like, what is that Fahrenheit? I don't even know.
It's hot.
It's very so hot. So we deal with extreme cold here. I have to look up what 35 5 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit. I'm Googling
It's probably
it right
never
now.
been that temperature in your life.
Let me
where you
see.
live.
Oh, 95. I mean, yeah, it gets to be 95
Does
sometimes
it?
here in Minnesota.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Okay.
And we're like, are you humid? Is it humid there or is it like a dry climate?
No, it's sort of moderate, like it, because we
Okay.
live like up further up north on the East Coast, like in Durban. There it gets very humid. That's very tropical. And then obviously down in
Okay.
Cape Town in the west, it's not humid. But PE is kind of halfway between those two. So we get a bit of humidity. There'll be like a spell for like a week where everyone's walking around dying, and then it gets back to normal. It's just very windy here. That's our climate. Oh my word, always.
Oh.
Interestingly, I don't know. We're close to the sea, so yeah.
Oh. I know
So
that. So another thing to look into is the Forest School of Philosophy. Um,
yes, I have been
um,
reading a book about that as well. It's so great. Oh my gosh, I love that.
yeah, so there's lots of programs that operate in the United States without a building at all. They meet in parks and like
Yeah,
county parks or state parks, like, and they can kind of get around licensing a little bit that way, depending on how many hours you're with the children and how many
yeah,
kids you're with, and if you're
yeah,
affiliated with a nonprofit and how old they are. So like there's workarounds, but those workarounds take a little bit to figure out. Like I didn't
yeah,
recognize all those workarounds until I was already in it.
yeah. So you said
And
you offer a forest school program as part of your program. Is it kind of like
yes.
twice a week? You do a little bit of forest school activity?
Yeah. So 4 mornings a week, we have a bus. So we have a bus, and that the bus I actually had to do a ton of fundraising for. So we got some grants and we got some donations. And one thing that like works really well for getting money, even probably for a for-profit, is going to service clubs. Like we have like sportsmen's clubs and we have Rotary clubs and Lions clubs, like all these service clubs that are
Yeah,
full of like old men who have money that they
yeah.
put in this pot and then they like divvy it out. And so going to those and speaking, we've gotten quite a few donations that way. So anyway, we have a
Great.
bus. It seats 13 kids, and one teacher drives, and then another seat is occupied by a teacher. So 15 on the bus. And 4 mornings a week, they leave preschool and they go to one of our county parks, and they
Oh,
just spend a
fun.
couple hours outside in free, unstructured play, hiking and building forts and boot
Cool.
skating on ponds and sledding, like you name it, they do it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
amazing.
so great.
And it's different children every day because we have probably now, this is our 7th school year, we have 45 kids in our program on average.
Okay.
And so and then we run part-time, we have part-time programming and we have full-time programming. So
Okay. Interesting.
we do take kids. So one thing that was missing in our community, I think it's really important to look at things that are like gaps that are missing
Yeah.
that families need. So
Yeah.
the preschool in our community at that point in time was half days, 3 hours a day or 2.5 hours a day. Parents had to pick up, drop off. There was no transportation available. And
Yeah.
like they'd have to leave work in order to come and pick up their kids at 11:30 and then figure out where they're going to take them from there. So one thing that
Yeah.
was so important to me, because I had young children of my own and
Mm.
saw this, like I had to put my 3-year-old on a public transportation bus at one point because,
Sure.
and like, that's what people do in our community. They like trust their 3-year-olds with these bus drivers. Like I don't know. I can't believe I ever did it, but I was like, I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I was working. I had a daycare in my home at that point. I couldn't leave.
Mm.
I had 12 kids I was caring for. So
Yeah.
I realized that there was a need for kids to be able to go to preschool and stay there all day.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that was super important to me, is making sure that we had that option for parents. So we started out with just Tuesday, Thursdays, kids could stay all day. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday was split into 2 half days. But our
Okay.
Tuesday, Thursday class was completely full
Wow.
every year. And so then we were like, maybe we need to add the option of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, full day too. And so we did that. And then I think 3 years ago, we decided to just like pull the trigger, and we created a full-time Monday through Friday, 7:15 to 5:15 option. And over half of our kids use that
Sure.
option now.
Yeah.
So we have like 20 kids who are Monday through Friday full-time. And
Wow.
that we're their preschool, we're their full-time caregivers. And I think that there's a lot of benefit to that too, because
Yeah.
the relationships are key to like optimal learning. So
Yeah.
to be
That's
able to
great.
have that continuity of care, those same teachers every single day, instead of switching back and forth Monday, Wednesday,
Like an
Friday to
aftercare.
daycare. Yeah. And then Tuesday, Thursday, preschool. The good that it does on the children and the attachment and the relation, they need those relationships in order for self-actualization or learning to happen, like optimal learning to happen. So they need to feel that trust and that safety. And that's hard to do if you're flip-flopping back and forth between a program that's super teacher directed and a program that's play-based. And we have found that can be super hard and confusing for kids. So we still offer like half days. We don't have very many spaces anymore for half day kids. I think we kind of limit it to 8 half day kids, and that's it. And then we reserve 20 spaces for full-time kids. And then the rest of the spaces are divvied out between the Monday, Wednesday, Friday kids or the Tuesday, Thursday kids. So
okay. And then what age group are your kids?
3, 4, and 5. And we are mixed age. So our kiddos,
I love that.
Yeah, they all are together. And there's so much magic in that.
Yeah.
There are trials too, because you have kids at all different play stages. And if you are unsure about like play stages and how that looks, that it can be hard as a educator to watch. So like, and I think it's also my own baggage from being a kid that brings me into this. But it's like you watch a 3-year-old and they're at a totally different play stage than a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And it can be really uncomfortable when you watch even like a 4-year-old playing all by themselves, and you see them kind of like looking around and they really don't know how to enter into play. But that in itself is a whole entire play stage. And so you have to recognize that not everybody needs
to be playing with someone
playing with.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's like a whole, when you have a mixed age group, there's just so many little like nuances. That's what I was looking for, that it's a little bit of a dance, but the benefits are so amazing watching like older kids or children who are just more developmentally advanced being able to help children who maybe don't know how to zip their coat, or like helping them, cheering them on.
It's like the older sibling thing, you know? It's like the beauty of having an older brother who can show you things, and now they just get to have that at school, which is so great.
Yes. And we do have sibling sets too, which is amazing to have them be able to do preschool for at least a year together before older one heads off to kindergarten. So that's been super fun to watch too.
So then in terms of your classes, do you just divide your classes then at random? Like how many kids do you have in one class?
Okay. So our space, well, right now during COVID, it's split into 2 spaces because of group size. But at a general, like regular year, our classroom is one classroom. It's super large. It's huge. I want to say it's like 2,500, 2,700 square feet. And and you probably don't know what that even means because it's not meters.
The metric system.
I'm not converting it. So
I'll just smile and nod.
It's big. And we're all in one space, and we have bathrooms down the hall. We can take up to 40 children in that one space at any one time. However, that's too many. So we limit it to 30 children in that one space, but that is with 4, maybe 5 teachers at any given time. So we staff over with our teachers by 1 for sure. Sometimes during busy parts of the day, we have another one. Just because that's a lot of kids with a lot of needs. And we also have a really big outdoor play space. Our outdoor classroom is giant too. So we need a lot of supervision in lots of the corners of the outdoor classroom, and we need more staff because of that. So our program is more expensive than any other program in our town.
Okay.
But it's because of our niche. It's because of the support that children need in their play and in the environment and when they're outside. And it's also because like we know what we're doing. Like we've done the work to give children the most developmentally appropriate place, environment that anybody could ever ask for their childhood. And many parents don't know that and don't understand that, but like that is one thing that I pride us on, is that we are actually standing up for what children need and what's developmentally appropriate. And I'm proud of that. And I won't budge from that. So
that's so good.
Yeah.
So good. I love that. What was the reason why you started from age 3? Was that because of sort of potty training phase, etc.?
Like licensing. So our licensing splits children up into different categories based on age. And then there's different requirements based on age. My expertise was with preschool age children. So I didn't feel comfortable at that point in time having a toddler program or having infants at all. Plus we didn't have the space for it. So I picked our niche, went for it. And now we're in the plans to expand, get our own building, get our own space, and add toddlers and then eventually infants. So, and we did add school age a few years in as well. We didn't start with school age, but we have school age programming when school's not in session. So all summer.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Cool. So 3, 4, and 5 is what we chose. And yes, they do have to be able to use the toilet on their own when they start with us. However, that also isn't developmentally appropriate to expect that, because all children learn at different times. And it's almost a little bit discriminatory to say you can't come because you can't pee on the potty. However, with licensing, we are not licensed to change pull-ups or diapers. So that is the reason why we don't accept anybody who has to be in a pull-up or a diaper all day. So, I mean, if licensing if that's not an issue in licensing and you're just thinking of going like preschool age or like 4 and 5-year-olds, I would definitely do that differently. I would let anybody come, no matter if they can go to the bathroom on the potty or not. And, but licensing tells us otherwise right now. So,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. What else? What else you got?
Sure. Oh my gosh, so many things.
Yeah.
My brain is swimming now. So I guess just maybe like a little bit, can you tell me a little bit about the structure of your day? If that isn't an oxymoron, because I know in play-based, there obviously has to be structure, but it's not like didactic structure.
Exactly. We have a routine and that's what we fall into. Sometimes the routine changes based on the weather. So what a typical day looks like is, and this, I'm going to kind of do pre-COVID because, I love building relationships with parents, and that's an important part. Right now, parents can't come in our building. So generally they walk their kiddo in, and, there's always a teacher right at the door to greet. And that teacher then has or we call play facilitator, not necessarily a teacher. I think that teacher has a connotation of like, I'm going to teach you all the things and you're going to learn all the things because I'm bigger than you and I know what you need to know. So I really like to refer to it more as like a play facilitator or a facilitator of learning. Okay. So we have one of our teachers near the door, and we always do a morning check-in, and it's not required. We don't force children to do anything in our program. So there is a morning check-in option. And what that is it's just a little tiny check for understanding, just to see where kids are at with certain skills. And we in Minnesota, we have a set of like benchmarks or standards called the Minnesota Childhood Early Indicators of Progress. And they are basically just split by age, birth through like the start of kindergarten. And it just kind of tells you the skills that are developmentally appropriate for children to be able to do at that point in time. Those unfortunately don't necessarily line up a lot with what kindergarten teachers are expecting, or with parents, what parents think children need to know. And so yeah, I would definitely look into like finding out if South Africa, or do you guys have states? Is that what you call them?
Provinces.
If your province has any sort of like early childhood benchmarks to
they definitely do. Yeah, they're called elders, early learning. I forget the developmental something
rating scale or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. You can kind of guess what all the letters mean. They're kind of similar everywhere. So we will look at those when kind of planning those things out and say, okay, we need to check to see if if where their cutting skills are at, or we need to check to see like where their one-to-one correspondence counting is, or patterning, or whatever it may be. And so we just do something really fun, and they can do it if they want. They don't have to if they don't want to. We chit chat with the parents a little bit, and then they head out, say goodbye to their kiddo, and then their kid runs and finds something to do. So we generally check-in starts at 7:15 when the first kiddos start coming, and it doesn't really end until 8:15. We have kids coming in for over an hour, just spread out. And that's because all families are different. All families have a different rhythm, and that's okay. And so we are flexible and meet kids at the door whenever they come in. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be there at a certain time. We do have some regulation around not showing up early because we may not have enough staff there. So if you signed up to have your kiddo come at 8, they can't come any earlier than 8 because we might not have enough staff there to provide the right amount of care per licensing. So we're a little bit stricter on that. And definitely at pickup time too, because you can't have kids there later than what they say they're going to be there because of staffing. So, morning check-in, and then the whole room is open. The whole room is set up. When the teachers come in the morning before kids arrive, they get all of the things ready, the paint at the easel, setting out art supplies on the tables. We have found definitely during like the beginning of the school year that kids aren't going to necessarily just grab things off of the shelves in the art area. And so we set things out on the table just to kind of maybe inspire, or just to kind of give them a few things to pick from, so it's not so overwhelming for coming from the shelf. And sensory tables out, like they have free access to everything that's set out in the room, and they can take it wherever they want most of the time. There are a few limits. Our 3 rules of the classroom are: it's okay if it's not hurting anyone, hurting anything, or hurting yourself. So we very much try to be what I call a yes environment, which means like finding a way to say yes to something, because if the kiddos say they're picking up and throwing a block, they're showing that they have a need for throwing something. So what can you provide instead to fulfill that need that's safe? So then, they have unstructured, uninterrupted free play for, and again, it depends on the time of year. When it's really nice out, it's usually till like 9:30, and then we go outside and we do everything outside that we did inside.
Just new things to play with.
Yep. It's like we just view it as a classroom outside. It's not a playground. It's an outdoor classroom, and they're learning through play out there just as much as they're learning indoors through play. So 9 or 10, depending on the time of year, we say 5 minutes till cleanup time. Also in that free play time is snack. And we have all the children bring their own snack and their own lunches, because we don't have a licensed kitchen. And so we can't serve food. So they all have to bring their own snacks and their own lunches. And
do you do you have like a set time when the kids eat snack, or are they allowed to eat their snack whenever they want?
Yep.
Okay. During that phase of the morning.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
because everybody has a different rhythm. Everybody has a different when that their tummy's hungry. So
Yeah.
when you're hungry, you go get your snack. And we do leave like a table open, or if we notice
Okay.
a kiddo's going to grab their snack and there's not a table open, we'll ask, do you need me to clean off a spot for you? And then get them situated. And usually once one grabs their snack, then like 10 others decide they're hungry too.
And do you have like little sections that's like theirs, like a little locker or a little shelf, like
Mhm.
with their name, and that's where they put their
Yep.
snack, and so they obviously can go access it at any
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So they actually have cubbies and things too, but they all bring a lunch box or like a lunch bag. And then we have them set it on, we have like a cart that's got like 3 levels that has wheels. And we have them take their lunch out of that's one of the first things they do in the morning after they check in or before they check in, is to grab their lunch out of their bag and they put it on that cart so that they're all in one place. And then it's easier for the teachers at lunchtime to just grab all the lunch boxes and set them on the tables. Cause at lunch, generally we set them when they're outside playing, one teacher will stay in and they will set all the lunches out. And we do that, I mean, you get to know the kids and you know who's going to eat around who and who's not going to eat when they're next to who, and who needs to sit right next to a teacher so that we make sure that they actually eat. So yeah, it's like on a rolling cart. Okay, so yeah, snack and then clean up, 5 minutes till clean up. Cleanup is not a developmentally appropriate time for young children. So the teachers at that 5-minute call furiously clean and try to get as much done as they can in that 5 minutes of all the things that kids aren't using anymore. We are not a program that makes children clean up like if they're done playing with something, we don't make them clean it up. If we notice that they're done and if we notice that they're done and they haven't played with it for a while, I might move over and like put it all back in a basket just so that it's not so overwhelming if a new kiddo wants to come and play with those materials. But otherwise we clean furiously. And then after the 5 minutes, we start a cleanup song and the children then help. And some kids help a lot. Some kids don't help at all. And that can be super frustrating for a teacher as well. But I think if you recognize that like, it's not quite developmentally appropriate for a 3-year-old to clean up for 15 minutes and stay totally engaged in cleanup. I mean, I can't even do that at home. So
no. So it's so interesting to hear you say it's not developmentally appropriate. I've never heard that before, because you only ever hear that like it's important to get the child involved in the cleanup, and they must learn that they can't just leave their stuff lying around. And like maybe talk to me a little bit more about.
Well, I mean, I think that you'll learn eventually, like, that you need to like clean up and leave your stuff not laying around because maybe you left your piece of art on the table and then somebody threw it away. And so you're going to learn from that. If you didn't put your name on it, like we don't know whose it is. And when other kids are cleaning up the table, they don't know that you made that. And so it could get thrown away. And so you learn from that experience, like, oh, I can't leave my art on the table. I need to go put it over here. Or when you get to like your teenage years and your room is a disaster, and then all of a sudden, like you have friends who want to come over, you're going to clean your room because you don't want them to see that, like your underwear laying all over the floor. So I think it's just a natural part of life. Like you learn, and it might take longer if you don't like enforce the issue, but also maybe you won't have people who are completely like anti cleanup because they were forced.
Because they haven't been forced.
Yeah. So it's definitely something I'm still learning. And I mean, I think when we first opened, it was like everybody has to help clean up and we all need to make sure that we're pitching in, and you can put this stuff away and you can do this stuff, and then getting frustrated when they would just kind of sit there and not do it. But now we very much shifted into a model more where it's like help clean up if you want to. It's really helpful if you help us clean up and we get done faster when we go outside. And there's a man by the name of Dan Hodgins who actually, he doesn't clean up. Like when he was teaching, he did not ever clean up until the very end of the day. And then the teachers would do it. And to me, that is so overwhelming because mess makes
It's
me
clutter
overwhelmed.
and yeah, it makes me anxious as well. Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I like, and I can't imagine what it would do for some children too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also with licensing regulations and nap time, we can't have stuff all over the floor. It has to be a clear
Yeah.
path for licensing rules between all the cots and
Yes.
whatnot. So
Yes.
anyway,
Okay, so back to the schedule. So then they go
yeah.
outside at like 9:30, 10ish.
So like, yeah, cleanup is between 9 and 10. And then we do like a small group time and we have the kids kind of split into developmental groups. And again, they don't have to participate, but generally they all do because like it's exciting. We make it exciting. So it's like storytelling or puppetry or fun finger plays, songs, reading a story, fun games, Simon Says. So we do like a group time activity and then we go to the bathroom and get all our stuff on and go outside. And then we spend anywhere between an hour to 2, depending on the weather, outdoors. And also like depending on the mud situation or the water situation, it all depends. So so we spend all that time outside again in free unstructured play. And then we come in and get undressed, get all our gear off, and then they have lunch. And the teachers sit and have lunch with the kids. So lunch usually happens about noon, about noon. And then it's rest time after that. So while the teachers kind of clean up after lunch, the children will sit on their cots or in little groups together and they'll read or they'll do puzzles, just kind of quiet activities while the teachers get cleaned up. Usually there's one teacher who will just sit down and read out loud to the kids and kids will gather around. And once everything's cleaned up and everybody's gone to the bathroom, then it's rest time. And our program, they have to rest per licensing. So they have to be on a cot for 30 minutes. And then if they're not sleeping after 30 minutes, they have to be allowed to get up. You can't force them to stay on their cot if they're not sleeping for longer than 30 minutes.
What is a cot? Is it like a little mattress?
Yeah. So it's like, it's like this little thing that sits on the floor that they sleep on. It's like, it's made out of like a mesh material that can be sanitized and they all bring their own blankie and their own pillow and they keep that in their cubby. And yeah, so then they rest. A lot of kids fall asleep. We're very much a believer in that children will sleep as long as their body needs them to sleep. But sometimes parents have different ideas about that. They maybe want their kids to go to bed at an earlier time, or they don't want to fight bedtime because their kiddo took a nap. So some parents will ask us to wake their kids up and after a certain time. And so we honor that. And because that's what the parents want us to do.
Yeah.
And then then when they go back outside and they're outside for the rest of the day until, a bunch of our kids leave at 3, but then we have a bunch of kids that stay till 5:15 or are picked up between 3 and 5:15.
Okay.
You can pick up any time in between 3 and 5:15. So generally, if it's nice out, they'll be outside from like 2 to 4. 4:30. Sometimes it's until 5:15. It just depends on the weather, but we try to spend as much time as possible outside in the afternoon as we can. And go inside if need be. And then there's another snack served in the afternoon.
And in terms of activities, so is there ever a time when you're expecting every kid to create or complete the same thing?
No.
So in terms of like documentation, I guess you'll be taking a lot of photographs of like, say, the progressive art that the children are engaging in. And then obviously each child will have like, I'm assuming, a profile. Do you use Seesaw as an app or do you use some kind of app like that?
Yep. Okay. So we use Sandbox.
Okay.
We take photos, of what the kids are doing. I also found I'm not like I don't really enjoy digital documentation. I'm more of a like, I have like a journal that I actually do, like my own teacher journal, where I will like find kind of one thing to focus on every few days or something. And I will just sit and I will observe and I will take pictures and I will write down what the kids are saying. And I will put pictures in that journal that I took during that time. Like I'll print them off and I'll tape them in there. And then I'll actually like leave that journal out at the end of the day when parents pick up so they can look through it if they want to. Sometimes kids add to that. Sometimes I'll do something in our group time in it. Write down what kids are thinking, write down my own observations, write down things that points out the learning so that parents can see what is actually taking place when they're stacking blocks 10 high, things like that. So I think everybody has their own style of documentation, and it takes a while to kind of figure out what works really well for you and your own learning type.
Are there like learning profiles that you take note of? Like, are you expected or required, or I don't know, do you like sort of mark like whether it's risk taking or caring, or like I guess that's part of the IB learner profile?
Yeah, so yes and no. So with our documentation, no, it's strictly photos and little stories about what's happening that points out some of the learning, and those are the things that we show parents. But we do have, in our state, we have to do 2 conferences with parents a year. And I actually created a whole entire document based on our Minnesota childhood, really the indicators of progress, the benchmarks. And I created this, basically it's an assessment tool, but we don't actually like ever sit down and test children. So we will notice if a child is doing something or can do something, or we've seen them do it, we know they're capable of doing it. And once we see that they have met that benchmark, we'll cross it off. And then that packet, I mean, it's like 15 pages, follows them from the time they start with us to the time they end with us. So some children are with us 3 full years. They're with us 3, 4, and 5. Some are with us just for 1. And so the packet is set up so that they can have 6 conferences, and we use a different color marking utensil every time we do it so that we can see how old they were when they met those certain things. So, I know you were interested in the blueprint for starting an early childhood program. And I said, it's a lot geared towards the United States and our own like business structure, but I really feel like you could learn so much from my play-based learning masterclass. Like,
I know. So I actually wanted to talk to you about that, because literally that's like starting on Monday. So I'm very interested in it. And I wanted to ask you, I see that like part of the masterclass is Zoom sessions, which I'm assuming are going to be like at a time when I'm probably in La La Land.
Yes, you're not the only one. There's so many people reaching out to me from across the world saying, I want to be part of these live Zooms, but the time doesn't work for me. So I'm trying to figure out a workaround for that. Normally people join, and then I record it, and then I post it or send out the link the next day so that anybody can watch it. However, I'm realizing that there's a need for me to do a different time based on different time zones. So I want to be able to do something. I just don't know what that looks like yet. I haven't had time to wrap my brain around it, but somebody from Japan just asked me the same thing.
And Japan is like, that's like 8 hours before me. So Japan must be like literally 16 hours ahead of you.
I know. So I don't know. I got to figure out. Well, and
you need to just clone yourself.
I know.
Have one at like 9 a.m.
I had a woman from Brazil in my beta course, because I did a whole entire round of this same course just as a beta test to get feedback on like what works, what doesn't, like what to add, what they need to know more of, all of those things. So we just wrapped that up last week, and we had a woman from Brazil, and she would come in every night. It was like 11 o'clock at night, her time, or 10 o'clock. It was like 3 hours later. So she was always up so late, but she did it. And then there was one woman from Spain, she's from Barcelona, and she kept saying, oh my gosh, I want to like get up in the middle of the night and meet all of you guys. And so the last night we had like a Zoom party to wrap up, and we all, brought our own beverages and whatever. And we did a Zoom party, and she showed up. She set her alarm for 2 a.m. to wake up so she could meet us. It was so amazing.
So cool. Because I was thinking like, I'll probably do that, because I don't know what time the sessions are, but I'm assuming it's like 6 p.m. on a Monday or something.
Yeah, there's 7 p.m. Central Time.
Okay.
So it'd be like in the middle of
it would be like 3 in the morning for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the moment, so I literally resigned my job. At the moment, I don't have a job. So like I could totally get up at 3 a.m. Like what's stopping me, you know? So yeah, I'm really keen. So yeah, I think registration closes tomorrow, right?
Yeah, tomorrow night at midnight.
Okay.
Yeah. But
cool.
So like all of these things that I'm telling you, everything is in there. Like you have access to all of my documentation and all of the templates, like the conference packets that I just told you about, like everything is in there. My handbooks, my things I give to parents when they tour, like there's so much stuff in there. And if you're considering starting a program, like it will jumpstart you an insane amount.
Yeah,
even though there's not a lot about business model and stuff in there, but
no, but that's okay. To be honest, that part of it, I'm not so worried. My brother is like a business whiz. Entrepreneurship is like he eats that for breakfast. So he's like already been really supportive, and he's very happy to help me sit down and work out the business model side of things. So not as worried about that. I think I'm more feeling overwhelmed at my lack of experience at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you know what this feels like. I think I just have a lot of imposter syndrome that sneaks up. That's like, what are you doing? You have no idea what you're doing. Like, and so I think the biggest naysayer right now is inside my own head.
Yep.
And I just need to like crush that down, because I mean, I heard you say you worked at a church, so I'm assuming that you are a Christian.
Yeah.
So me too. And for me, it's like that's a massive part of my life. And this is very much like a faith step. Like, and I'm feeling like as much as I'm terrified, I also feel this like amazing peace that I'm stepping into like the true calling and the true purpose that God has put in me, like just in terms of my giftings and my passion. And so, yeah, I think I'm less scared about those things, and I know that they'll work themselves out, but I'm more interested right now in just like, that's why I'm so excited that I found your page and that you've even been willing to talk with me today, because I just feel like I want to like surround myself with people right now that are doing the same thing and just be part of that community. And learning and growing and inspiring each other and all of that stuff.
I think a really cool thing that happened that I feel like set up the trajectory of my life to open this program, and then now to be able to share what I know with others on a digital platform. So I was teaching in that traditional classroom, and it was part-time, and our family needed more money. And so I found somebody had forwarded me this job description of the Christian education director that was part-time working for this church. And so I applied, and they wanted to hire me, but the money wasn't not what I needed to be able to be away from home. And my 3 kids, I had 3 kids at that time.
How many do you have now?
4. I have 4.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Super mom.
So 15, all the way down to 6. And then we also we're hosting a foreign exchange student from Basque Country, Spain right now. So
and you're getting another one from South Africa.
Yeah. So our one from Spain / Basque Country, he leaves in June, and then hopefully the other one will come in August, and then he'll be with us for 9 months, hopefully. So so I turned the job down, and then 2 days later, I just had this, like, I have to do this. I don't know why I'm feeling pulled to do this. Like, prayed about it. And so I actually called back and I said, I changed my mind, and I would love to take the position if it's still open. If not, I get it, but I'm feeling a pull, and I had to call. And then they hadn't hired anybody, so they hired me, and I would not be where I am today had I not called back.
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
So you trust that gut, you pray, you do what you feel led to do, and your whole life path, it's just going to go. Everything just steamrolls when you trust your gut and you take risks and you do what you feel led to do.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I really appreciate your time and your heart, and you're just so generous, and I'm so excited.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I love your accent is the cutest thing ever.
Yours is cute. I love it.
Nah, mine's just you're around people who speak like you all day. So you're just like, oh, it's not cute. It's just normal. Same. Mine's just normal, I think.
I don't have an accent. You have an accent.
I know, right? Okay.
It's like I hope way past an hour now.
Oh, it's okay. Do you have any other questions? I feel like there's so much more.
I do have one more question just about the COVID thing. How are you getting around kids sharing items and how are you getting around that with COVID?
So our biggest changes were that we split the room in half. We used our cubbies and made basically a wall in between the two classrooms. So our full-time kids are on one side and they intermix outside, but they don't intermix inside. And then the part-time kids are on the other side. And then the teachers kind of stay apart too. All of our teachers wear masks. For the kids, we are not a program that is making kids sit in. There's pictures of kids sitting in taped off squares.
It's awful.
Yes. We don't do that. So they're there for the day. We use really safe sanitizer on things throughout the day. Lots of hand washing. We had to buy a portable sink for one side of our classroom so that they could have easy access to wash their hands. But otherwise they play with anything and everything. We don't make them stand 6 feet apart.
Are they allowed to touch each other?
Yeah. Yep. They can touch each other. That's developmentally appropriate. And I'm not going to sacrifice their needs and their childhood.
Yeah.
We have had 0 cases in our program.
So and are your parents, because obviously law is dictating a lot of these regulations, but I also think a lot of it is fear and pressure coming from parents. So have your parents all been quite open and understanding and just been cool sanitizing?
Yep. Okay. And so then at night we they sanitize everything. So they'll lay it all out and towels and spray it all down and wash it or whatever. So there is a lot of extra cleaning happening. But the day feels the same to the kids, and that's important to me.
That's so good. That's really, really good to hear. And I'm hoping that it just gets better and better and that we don't experience a third wave and, I
know we're lucky enough that that's where I'm going right after this is to get my second COVID vaccine. So,
oh my gosh, your second one.
Yes. I got my first one a month ago on all of my staff. So we're driving an hour and a half away to get our second one today. And we're actually picking up a bearded dragon for one of our classrooms too, because one of the teachers wants to get a bearded dragon. So
a real live lizard.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We had a class bunny forever. If you look on my Instagram highlight reel, I think it's called Bounce is the name of the highlight reel. And you can see our class bunny. He was with us for 6 full years and he just passed away this summer. So
that's what's sad about bunnies. They don't live very long. Hey, poor little guy.
And he was amazing. He was neutered. If you look at he loved nap time because he would hop around in between the cots and the kids would reach over and pet him as he would go by and scratch his ears and he'd lay down next to some of them.
A real life
he would actually hop on their cots and then it would freak him out. The kids, he knew our rhythm as far as he would figure out when lunchtime was and he would run over and eat all of the things that fall on the floor. So,
that's so sweet.
Class pets are an important part of our program, but we haven't gotten a bunny since Bounce. We were so spoiled with him. We will again another day. We have a hutch, but I don't know. We're just not quite ready. I don't think for another one. It was sad when he died. We cried a lot.
Shame.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know. So bearded dragon. That's where we're getting
Do
today.
it.
Oh my
fun.
goodness. Okay. Well, I'm hoping that you're going to be around in the play-based learning course because I have loved chatting with you today. And I'm going to try to figure out how I can do at least a couple sessions with other time zones.
Yeah.
Throughout the
Even
course.
if it's not every week. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can watch the recording ones, but maybe just, for every now and then to have a little touch base.
Yes. And then I can wake up or not go to bed or whatever it may be. I don't know. I'll figure something out because I want as many people as possible around the world to be able to have this play based.
Yeah, we're just growing the magic. That's what it's all about. So.
Yes, I love that. We're growing the magic. We are. I love that. Okay, Nikki. Also,
Kristen.
we have the same last name too.
I know. How amazing.
I know. It's
so
spelled
excited.
different, but that was crazy. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, they have Petersons in South Africa. That's it's a European name.
It's my husband's surname. So I can't, it's not my birth surname. I'm married to Mr. Peterson. So.
Okay. So what's your birth surname?
LaRue. It's weird. Leroux.
Okay.
Originally French way back in the day, but now quite a common South African surname actually. But yeah, so I've been married for 3 years this year, so I'm still getting used to the fact that I'm actually a Peterson. I'm not a LaRue anymore. So
I've been married for 19 years, 18 years.
Wow.
My maiden name is Bolton, Bolton. So I don't even know where that originates from. I think it's a English name. I think.
Yeah, sounds English. Well, we married good men with good surnames.
Yes, we did. Okay, Nikki, it was so nice to meet you. Thanks for the good conversation. And we will talk soon.
Thank you. Yes. And enjoy your weekend. Be safe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, I need you to do me a huge favor. If you liked listening and you want to be able to hear more, can you please go onto iTunes and leave me a 5-star review? I would so appreciate it. And then connect with me on Instagram. It's learning.wild. We'll see you around.